Good morning everyone. Today we're going to make gingerbread men, and that's to remind us of the story that we've heard this morning about Jesus healing the paralysed man. So he was very sad because he couldn't move, and then he became very happy because Jesus not only made him walk again but forgave his sins. So we'll make some gingerbread men, and we can always make some happy ones and some sad ones to remember the story. Okay, I'm going to make them just in a bowl using my hands, but if you have a food processor, that's even quicker. So you can do every step in that, and I'll tell you as I go along. First of all, we're going to take flour, tip that into the bowl, and then we're adding to it bicarbonate of soda, and that makes them rise just a little bit. And then we add the spices, so you get the ginger in the gingerbread men. So 2 teaspoons of ground ginger and also a teaspoon of cinnamon. And that's a lovely combination of spices. So we'll mix those things together a little bit. And then we're adding to that some butter. And I've made the butter just a little bit soft. So you know when it comes out of the fridge, it's really hard. Well, I've softened it just a little bit, and we'll tip that in there. If you're using a food processor, you can just put all those dry ingredients into the food processor, add the butter and whiz it up till it looks like breadcrumbs, but we're going to do it with our fingers. So this is called rubbing the butter into the flour, and with the tips of your fingers you just rub it, and you're mixing the flour together with the butter, and eventually you won't see the lumps of butter anymore. So now I've rubbed the butter into the flour. It takes a few minutes, and I think now, can you see it looks quite like breadcrumbs? It's all fine. You don't see any big lumps of butter anymore. So that means it's all mixed. Then we're going to add to that brown sugar. We're going to crack in an egg. It's tricky cracking an egg, isn't it? Yeah. Try not to get any shell in it. You might want to crack it into a cup first, because then if there's any shell you can fish it out before you tip the egg into your mixture. The last thing to add is 4 tablespoons of golden syrup. So I'll measure those. And then we can mix that all together. If you're using a food processor, it all happens very quickly. You put the golden syrup and the egg into the food processor and it all brings it together into a ball of dough. But it's not much harder doing it by hand. You just need to keep mixing, and eventually it turns into a ball of dough. So there's my ball of gingerbread men dough. There's no dry flour. It has taken a few minutes to put it together, but just keep working at it. And then what you do to make it easier to roll out is we actually put it in the fridge for 15 minutes. So I've got a plastic bag, and I'll put the ball of dough into the plastic bag. And then pop that in the fridge for it to just harden up a little bit so we can roll it out. Well, my dough has had some time in the fridge and it feels not too soft to roll out. So let's give it a go. I'm not going to take the whole ball of dough out at once because it's easier to work with just a bit of it. So I've got about half the ball here. What you can do is you can sprinkle flour on the bench, and that helps it not to stick. But my trick is I actually use non-stick baking paper, and I put 1 layer underneath it, squash it down a bit flat, put another layer on the top, And then when you roll over that, it doesn't stick to the table at all. And you're rolling it out till it's about 1/2 centimetre thick. So you keep turning it to roll it and make sure it's even. This is a really nice dough. It's rolling out nicely. When you think it's about the right thickness, you just peel off the top paper. And then that paper can go onto your baking tray, and that will help it not stick when it cooks as well. So I've got some cookie cutters. I've got a little man. If you don't have any cookie cutters, you can just cut shapes with a knife if you'd like to. Do whatever you like. So I'm going to press some gingerbread men out. And what I always do is try and make the men stand very close to each other so that I don't have to keep rolling out the dough. I don't leave any big gaps. And then you might need something to help you get them off the paper. So you slide this underneath. Lift off your little men and put them onto the baking paper on the baking tray. And I'm going to do some love hearts. And I've got enough dough rolled out for a couple of circles. When you've got all the cookies you can cut out of a piece of dough, you just gather the scraps together, make them into a ball again, and roll out that and cut some more. But these ones on the tray are all ready to go, and we cook them in the oven at 180 degrees for about 12 minutes, just till they're very lightly golden. Here are my gingerbread men and hearts and circles ready to cook. They're going to bake in the oven at 180 degrees for 12 to 15 minutes. They might spread slightly, so just make sure they're not touching. And it's always a good idea to have an adult help you when you're doing something hot in the oven, and wear oven gloves. So we'll cook those for 12 minutes. Well, the oven's just beeped, so let's have a look and see how they're done. There we are, after 12 minutes, they're looking nice and golden, so I'll take those out. To make the icing, you take icing sugar, I've got about a cup here, and you put it through a sieve, and the reason you do that is to get any lumps out. You put the icing sugar into the sieve, and to use the sieve you just keep stirring the icing sugar, and it goes through the sieve and into the bowl. Then I add a tiny bit of butter, just about a teaspoonful, and then you add a little bit of water at the time. You can always add more water, but if you add too much, you can't take it out. So if we just start with a tablespoonful, and boiling water is really good, but do get an adult to help you if you're using hot water. You can use cold. And I'm mixing that first tablespoon, and after a while I can see I've mixed it all in, but there's still lots of dry icing sugar. So I'll just do a little bit more. Always making sure I don't put too much in. That looks about right. It's still slightly runny, but not very runny. I can't see any butter anymore. Now, the easiest way to decorate gingerbread men and other cookies like that is to use what's called a piping bag. So it's a triangle bag like this. You can buy them really cheaply at the pound shop. And if you put the icing inside there, then you can use it like a pen to decorate. You can buy icing pens, so that might be an easier way to just buy it in a tube. But if you make icing, to fill the piping bag, you fold the top back over your hand. Then you've got the bag open there, and you just spoon the icing into the bag. And because we've folded all that back, when you pull that up, you've got a nice clean top to hold closed. So you hold that closed and just squeeze all the icing down to the bottom, and we'll snip a little hole there for the icing to come out. So now's the last bit when we ice them, and you can be really creative with this. Here's the piping bag. One thing you can do to keep that end shut is put a rubber band around it, and that's a great idea because then the icing doesn't spill out. I've not got my rubber band. You can do that at home. Got the pointy end of the bag, and you just snip it off with a pair of scissors, and the bigger amount you snip off, the more icing will come out. So I'm going to try and start with just a little small hole, so only a thin bit of icing comes out. And then you just hold the end of the piping bag and squeeze and use it like a pen. So I'm going to decorate a man. I'll put some icing, use it a bit like glue so I can stick on other things. Put 3 buttons on his tummy, and look, I found these really funny little eyes that you can eat. So I'm going to try giving him some eyes, and then some Smarties for buttons. And I'll try piping a smile, although I've not left myself much room. He looks a bit crazy. I'm just finishing the last one. There's sprinkles everywhere and icing everywhere, but I've finished. I'll show you what they look like up close. There they are, all my gingerbread cookies. Actually, there's loads more that I've not iced. These are just the ones that are finished, and look, here's the paralysed man lying on his mat. He's sad. And here is the man, and he's healed and he's up on his feet and he's happy. So I hope you enjoy making your gingerbread men, and remember you can send pictures of them so we can all see what you've made.